The Message of Holy Mother, published by Advait Ashrama, Publication House of Ramakrishna Mutt, Belumat. In her one sees realized that wisdom and sweetness to which the simplest of women may attain, and yet, to myself, the stateliness of her courtesy and her great open mind are almost as wonderful as her sainthood. Her life is one long stillness of prayer. Sister Nivedita. The Message of Holy Mother Sri Sharada Devi. My son, you know the Master looked upon everyone as the Divine Mother. This time, he has left me behind to develop the ideal of motherhood on earth. The only ornament of a woman is her modesty. I am the mother of the wicked, as I am the mother of the virtuous. Whenever you are in distress, just say to yourself, I have a mother. To a mother, a son is always a son. O my children, take refuge, just take refuge. Then alone, out of her mercy, she will clear the way. Everyone can break down something, but how many can build it up? One should not hurt others even by words. By indulging in rude words, one's nature becomes rude. One's sensitivity is lost if one has no control over one's speech. The Master used to say, one should not ask a lame person how he became lame. If one initiates somebody, one has to take his sins upon oneself. I feel that since the body must perish one day, let it be for the sake of these people. Numerous ordinary people are born and die. The greatest souls accompany an incarnation of God in order to do His work. As for those who depend upon God and have faith in Him, well, that itself is their sadhana. The less you become attached to the world, the more you enjoy peace of mind. If you do not call upon God, indeed, many people never even remember Him. What does it matter to Him? It is your own misfortune. Such is the Maya of God. He keeps them ignorant of Himself, saying, they are happy enough, let them be so. Although it is the property of water always to flow downwards, yet the sun's rays suck it up to the sky. So the mind naturally tends downwards. It suffers, but the mercy of God turns it upwards. Those who are born to God have already fulfilled all their desires. So long as a man has any desire, he is incapable of such motiveless devotion. From desire comes this body into being. When there is no desire at all, the body falls away. With complete cessation of desires, there comes the final end. As long as a man has desires, there is no end to his transmigration. It is the desires alone that make him take one body after another. Rebirth is inevitable so long as one has desires. By eating prasada, one's mind becomes purified. One must have reverence for the Guru. Whatever he might be, one's chance of salvation lies in one's reverence for him. Observe how the disciples of the Master revere him. Out of reverence for him, they revere not only all the members of his family, but even the cats from his home district. People have been worshipping images from time immemorial and attaining liberation. Do you want to say that does not mean anything? Our Master had no such narrow dogmatic views. God is everywhere. But this you must believe. Holy men are born to guide others, and each one talks in a different way. There are many ways, and so what each one says is true. Take, for instance, the different kinds of birds, white, black, red, sitting on the same tree and singing differently. Though the sounds fall on the ear in varying tones, we call them by the common term of chirping. We never say that one of the sounds alone is chirping and the others are not. Listen, when God first created man, He endowed him with the spirit of goodness. As a result, men were born with wisdom, and it did not take them long to realize that the world was an ephemeral thing. Immediately they took the name of God and set out to meditate on Him, and by His grace were liberated from the bonds of life. God thought, this will not do. This is not the way to make them play the game of life. In the end, along with the spirit of goodness, He mingled in profuse quantities the spirit of materialism and that of vanity. Then the game of life went on with a swing. People complain about their griefs and sorrows and how they pray to God, but find no relief from pain. But grief itself is a gift from God. Tell me, who is there in the world who has not had to bear sorrows? Vrinda once said to Krishna, "Who said you are merciful? As Rama you filled Sita's life with sorrow. As Krishna you make Radha's life miserable. In Kamsa's prison, your parents weep for you day and night. Yet we call upon you, because he who takes your name has no fear of death." However great a soul may be, when he assumes a mortal body, he must bear all bodily sorrows. The only difference is that ordinary people depart in tears, but a great soul goes laughing as though death were a game. Blessed are the poor and the suffering. There is evil in your mind, that is why you can't find peace. Many are known to do great works under the stress of some strong emotion. But a man's true nature is known from the manner in which he does his insignificant daily task. There is such a thing as guilt committed in the course of service to a great spiritual soul, and that occurs when a person acquires after long service some power over the person attended upon. Then he wants to move his master about like a doll. He dictates at every turn, rising, sitting, eating, or doing anything whatsoever. The idea of service is then lost. Why should those come to such a state who forget their own bodily comfort and serve a saint with the idea that their happiness and sorrow consist in his happiness and sorrow? Many great saints have an aura of glory about them. Some come to serve them under its influence and become overpowered by it, and there they sink. They say that when the moon is reflected in the water of a pond, the little fish there jump and run about in great glee under the idea that it is one of themselves. But when the moon sets, they are just where they were. A depression follows their frolicking, and they understand nothing. Whenever you go from one place to another, observe the things around you, and also keep yourself well informed about what happens in the place where you live. Therefore, you must be up and doing if you want to achieve anything good and great. If you fall into water, whether willingly or unwillingly, your cloth will get wet all the same. Initiation by a guru is necessary. It purifies the body. By repeating the mystic syllable of the Lord, man becomes purified. There is a Puranic story about this. Narada had been to Vaikuntha, the heaven where the Lord resides. At that time, Narada was not initiated. Narada departed after a short talk with the Lord. When he left the place, the Lord asked Lakshmi, the divine consort, to sprinkle Ganga water to purify the place where Narada had been sitting. Lakshmi said to her Lord, "Why do you ask me to do this? Narada is a great devotee." The Lord replied, "He may be a great devotee, but he is not yet initiated. Unless one is initiated, his body is not purified. For the purification of the mind and the body, initiation by a guru is necessary. The guru imparts spiritual power to the disciple through the mystic syllable at the time of the initiation. The spiritual powers flow from the guru to the disciple and vice versa. That is why, after initiation of a disciple, one gets ill, for one has to take over the sins of the disciple. Where is that competent student who can understand spiritual instruction? First of all, one should be fit, otherwise the instructions prove futile. But if the disciple is good, the guru is benefited thereby. Power flows through the mantra, from the guru to the disciple, and from the disciple to the guru. That is why, when one gives the mantra and takes the sins of the initiated upon oneself, one's health fails. It is very hard to be a guru. One has to take the responsibility for the disciple's sins. If the disciple commits a sin, the guru must pay for it. And if the disciple is good, the guru also stands to gain. Man becomes purified by repeating a mantra. The Lord has given the fingers. Make the best use of them by counting His mantra. Do you know the significance of japa and other spiritual practices? By these, the power of the sense organs is subdued. Past sins are counteracted by meditation, japa and spiritual thought. Everything is in the mind. Nothing bears fruit unless the mind is pure. Can one be called a man unless he has kindness? He is an animal. If the moon in the sky be covered with clouds, the wind blows them away, and then only you can see the moon. Do the clouds scatter away all of a sudden? Exactly the same here. The karmas get exhausted slowly. When God is realized, He illumines the soul internally. One knows this internally. Desire will continue as a matter of course, so long as you have your eye. In these miserable times, one may find God only through steadfast observance of truth. The mind becomes pure after long practice. The pure mind can never be had without sadhana. What happens when one finds God? Does one grow two horns? No, indeed, but the mind becomes pure. An illumination dawns on a pure mind. One must cast aside indolence and put one's mind to prayer and meditation at the proper time. Prayer and meditation, or pilgrimage, or even earning money, all these should be done during the earlier part of one's life. In old age, one's physical and mental strength is weakened. Your prayers and meditations must be accomplished now in your youth. One must be patient like the earth. What iniquities are being perpetrated on her, yet she quietly endures them all. Man, too, should be like that. The mind is restless, so in the beginning, one should hold one's breath for short periods and try to meditate. It helps to calm the mind. But one must not overdo this. It heats the head. Realization of God or meditation, all these depend upon the mind. Concentrate and everything will come to pass. Men are always forgetful of God. That is why, whenever there is a need, God comes in human form and shows the way to piety. When one attains true knowledge, God ceases to exist separately. One calls upon the Eternal Mother and in the end finds her in all creation. Everything then becomes one, that is all. Worship ends with absorption and meditation. Many people seek God only after disappointment in other spheres. But one who from childhood can place one's heart at the Master's feet, like a fresh flower, is blessed indeed. One never finds Him without love and devotion. Pray to God with all your might. One has to work. Can anything be achieved without work? Even in the midst of household duties, one must make time for prayer. As you meditate, you will realize that He who is in me is in you too, and in the humblest of men. Only then will humility grow in your mind. To pray to God and meditate on Him for even 2 minutes with full concentration is better than doing so for long hours without it. One's love of God depends entirely upon one's inner feeling. Love of God is the essential thing. Give up this dry discussion, this hodgepodge of philosophy. Who has been able to know God by reasoning? The mind is like a mad elephant. It rushes with the wind. That is why one must distinguish between good and evil and work hard for the sake of God. When one sits in meditation at evening, one gets a chance to think of what one has done, good or bad, during the whole day. Next, one should compare the state of one's mind in the preceding day and the present. Then one should meditate on one's chosen deity as one goes on making japam. Can one get everything merely by meditating for a few days? Nothing will be of any avail unless Mahamaya clears the way. The mind naturally tends to evil. It is disinclined to good deeds. Practice meditation, and by your mind will be so calm and fixed that you will find it hard to keep away from meditation. Japa will eventually bring spiritual realization. Practice sadhana for some time in some solitary place like Rishikesh. This will so strengthen your mind that in whatever place or company you may keep it afterwards, it will remain unaffected. A small plant has to be hedged round against cows or goats. A grown-up plant has no fear from them. Whenever you feel your mind stirred by undesirable thoughts and yet you desire knowledge, pray to Him earnestly. He will purify your mind and solve your doubts. Never fear. He is ever looking after you. Do His work and practice sadhana. A little work daily drives away idle thoughts from the mind. A solitary and inactive life is liable to be troubled with idle thinking. Always discriminate. Whenever the mind goes after anything other than God, consider it as transient and surrender the mind at the sacred feet of the Lord. Be like the man who, while angling for fish, became so absorbed in it that he did not hear the least of the din and bustle of a marriage procession passing by. To realize God and to be absorbed uninterruptedly in His consciousness is the aim. Do not give up japa even if the mind is unwilling and unsteady. You must go on with the repetition, and you will find that the mind is getting gradually steadier, like a flame in a windless corner. Any movement in the air disturbs the steady burning of the flame. Even so, the presence of any thought or desire makes the mind unsteady. The mantra must be correctly repeated. An incorrect utterance delays progress. A single utterance of the Lord's name is as effective as 1,000,000 repetitions of it, if only you do it with a steady, concentrated mind. What is the use of repeating 1,000,000 times with an absent mind? You must do this wholeheartedly. Then only can you deserve His grace. Don't puzzle the mind with too many inquiries. One finds it difficult to put one thing into practice, but dares invite distraction by filling the mind with too many things. If the mind is pure, why should not one get concentration? Why should not one have God vision? After practicing japam for some time, one will find that as soon as one sits for meditation, The mantra rises up from within, spontaneously, without any effort. One must repeat the mantra at least 15 to 20,000 times a day. Then only one will get some results. One is sure to get it. One must practice first before one complains that one is not progressing. But then, one must practice japa with a little attention. People don't practice and simply say, "Why am I not progressing spiritually?" The mind gets purified after hard tapasya. Without regular practice, nothing can be attained. Both purity and impurity are in the mind. When a man sees defects in others, the first result is that his own mind gets polluted. What does he gain by finding faults in others? He hurts himself by that. From my childhood, I could never find faults in others. That one thing I have never learned in life. Forgiveness itself is a great tapasya. The Master used to advise his devotees to refrain from Shraddha food, for such food is detrimental to bhakti. With the exception of that, you can take any food after offering it to the Lord. Whatever you take, offer it to the Lord first and then take it as His prasad. If you do that, your blood will be purified, and if the blood is purified, your mind will be purified. Early morning and evening, that is when night passes into day and day into night. These are the best hours for meditation. One should meditate regularly at fixed hours. For who knows when the auspicious moment will come, when one will have a vision of the divine. Such a moment comes suddenly, without any premonition. So one should keep to the routine, however much one's mind might be disturbed. Creation itself is full of griefs. How can one appreciate joy if there be no sorrow? And how can it be possible for everyone to be happy at the same time? No one is miserable forever, no one in all the incarnations. One reaps as one sows. It is all linked in cause and effect. People who are worldly minded cannot become detached. Such is life, here today, gone tomorrow. Nothing goes with one except one's merit and demerit. Good and evil deeds follow one even after death. There is no happiness while living in this body. The world is full of sorrow. Happiness is only an empty word. Only those who have received the grace of the Master, Sri Ramakrishna, have been able to recognize Him as God, and that is their only joy. One who has a pure mind considers everyone pure. Even if you commit so much as a little fault, after doing 1,000 good to somebody, he will be at once offended. People only look for faults. One should look for the merits as well. To err is human. One must not take that into account. It is harmful for oneself. One gets into the habit of finding fault. Man finds fault in others after bringing down his own mind to that level. Does anyone really lose anything by others' criticism? The critic himself suffers. I have been like this from my childhood. I am never critical about other people's faults. I try to remember people for the least service they have done for me. To think that one should look for people's faults. No one should look for faults. I never learnt that. To forgive is divine. Whenever people discuss good or evil, all those who are present have to take a little share of the good or evil. Suppose someone tells you about his good and evil deeds. Every time you think of that person, you must perforce remember his good and evil deeds. In this manner, his good and evil deeds both leave some impression upon your mind. Remember one thing. If you want peace of mind, then give up fault finding. If you would search for fault at all, find out your own faults and shortcomings. Learn to accept everyone as your own. No one is alien to you. The whole world is yours. My son, you are from God Himself. How many people can give up everything for the sake of God? When one takes refuge with God, life's goal changes. God Himself reverses His destiny. What happens when one finds God? Does one grow a pair of horns? No, but one can distinguish good from evil, discover knowledge, and pass beyond the reach of life and death. One must find Him in one's meditations. Ordinary human love results in misery. Love for God brings in blessedness. Only people who have renounced the world can resist the temptation of wealth. A monk represents the ideal of renunciation. He should have no attachment or aversion. He should endure everything. A monk should not visit his home. Meeting his people revives old memories. He must forget these, nay, his very body. Then only he can have a vision of God. A monk must be beyond all attachments. Golden chains are as much of a bond as iron chains. A monk must have no attachments. A man of knowledge can become a sannyasin. If one's time to go beyond the worldly state is ripe, one will break all bonds and come. Nobody will be able to check him. Lack of money, awaiting somebody's approval, fear of having to go back, these things are nothing. They, the monks, are like white cloth, whereas the worldly people are like black cloth, on which even ink spots do not show, but a single spot on the white material catches the eye. To be in the body is a source of evil. Whether one calls on God or not, one is already half free if one does not marry, and one will rush ahead with great speed once the mind turns to God. Those only who had a burden of great sins in the past life marry and start a worldly life. They can't rise from the state even if their minds want to turn to God, for they are tied hands and feet. And it is extremely bad for a monk to possess money. There is nothing impossible for the round pieces to do, even to the extent of endangering life. Money is at the root of all the disasters you see in the world. Money may lure one's mind to other temptations. It is a monk's duty to call on God. The monk cannot complain that God vision is denied him in spite of his hard struggle. God will reveal Himself at His will. He is not at anybody's beck and call. Whoever surrenders himself to God is saved. A sadhu must be always alert. His path is very slippery, and a slippery path has to be trodden with exceedingly careful steps. Is it a fun to be a sannyasin? He must not even look at a woman, and when he walks the street, his eyes should be fixed on his big toes. Just as the collar of a dog saves it from being killed as a street dog, even so does the ochre robe of a sannyasin save him from harm. His is the royal road, and everyone makes way for him. Mukti, freedom of the soul from the bondage of life and death, is like candy in the hands of a baby. Someone tries to coax a bit out of his hands, but he refuses, whereas he is unaccountably pleased with someone else and immediately makes a gift of the sweet. In the same way, some strive all their lives and yet are unsuccessful, while others receive mukti as a gift from God. The moment he has compassion, he gives. His grace is all that matters. God is like a child. He gives to those who do not hanker for things, and withholds from those who do, just as he fancies. Even a blade of grass cannot stir without the will of God. When a creature falls on good times, his thoughts turn to prayer. When he falls on bad times, all is evil. It is all according to his will. He acts through his objects. Should a man yield himself unto him, he will do everything for him. He is one's own, ever related to one. He is everybody's own, each getting him just as he wants. He is one's father and mother. He takes the form of one's father and mother. One should be extremely careful about making his service perfectly flawless. But the truth is, God knows our foolishness, and therefore He forgives us. God is everywhere, all the time. Did God create things one by one, like a doll maker painting with his brush the eyes, mouths, noses, etc. of his dolls gradually? No, He has a power. With His yes, everything in the world comes out, and with His no, everything vanishes. All things come out at the same time, and not one thing after another. God alone is real, all else is false. He, Sri Ramakrishna, is the Godhead and one's chosen deity. He is all the gods and all their sacred word symbols. In Him, one worships all the gods and goddesses. It does not matter how you address Him. Satya Yuga, Golden Age, commenced with the advent of Sri Ramakrishna. Whoever has called upon the Master once has nothing more to fear. If one calls upon Him repeatedly, he becomes compassionate, and so a devoted attachment comes into being. This love for love's sake should be hidden from all eyes. The gopis of Vrindavan experienced it. They knew nothing but Krishna. We have not been able to do all the things the Master told us. Had we done so, how could we have suffered like this? Here we are wrapped up in our worldly lives, worrying all the time over unimportant details. At the same time, it is essential that one should work. It is through work alone that one may break asunder the bonds of karma. Only then one is free from desires. One shouldn't be without work even for a single moment. The essence of the Master's teaching was the renunciation of a worldly life. All that matters is to have the mind fixed on the Lord. The Master came this time to save all, rich or poor, educated or uneducated. The southern Malaya breeze, that is divine grace, is blowing strong enough. Anyone who will hoist his sail a little, who will seek refuge in Him, will be fully satisfied. All trees will be turned into sandalwood by this breeze. All trees and plants that have a little hardwood, except grass and bamboo. Alluding to the popular belief that the Malaya breeze has the power. It never struck me that he, Sri Ramakrishna, practiced all the religions with the deliberate idea of preaching the harmony of all religions. He was ever absorbed in divine moods. He used to enjoy the Leela, divine play, from all the points of view, by adopting the Christian, Mussulman and Vaishnava paths to realize the truth. His days and nights passed in these alone. He had no other consciousness. But in this age, his renunciation is the speciality. Did anyone see such habitual renunciation anywhere before? As for the idea of the harmony of religions, well, that too was excellent. During earlier incarnations, one of the attitudes was magnified at the cost of all others. Life and death are full of pain. May you never suffer them again. May all be blessed here and hereafter.